Check this out, new jacket. $20 at Costco. Also, pro tip, when you're buying one of these work jackets, you want to make sure that you get one that has the nylon lined on the sleeves. Some of the more expensive ones have actual flannel on the inside, and while that might be cozy, you can't get it on and off really quickly. Now it's getting cold out and I got my nice flannel work jacket on. I promised you guys I would do a follow-up video on the Vanderwall surf grip. So, actually I can see my breath. So, let's get into it. Back several months ago, I did a review on the Vanderwall surf grip. If you haven't checked out that video, go and check that out. I did a review on the 1.0 version. They've since come out with a follow-up version, which is supposed to be grippier. And I've tried it out now. I've used it for the whole season, and I'm ready to give you guys my impression. But also, I also promised you guys a review on this VersaTraction stuff here. And I've put this on my longboard, and I got to use this quite a bit too. So I'm gonna give you, this is gonna be a 2-for-1 video on this surf traction and my impressions. So, this board here, this little egg board that I created a whole video series on how to make, you should go check that out if you haven't watched that. I put the 1.0 Vanderwall surf grip onto this board. Also, incidentally, I just want to make a note that while this Vanderwall surf grip looks a lot like VersaTraction, they're both made in Europe, but one is made in, I believe, Spain, and the other one's made in Portugal, and I believe Vanderwall's made in Portugal. Anyways, so VersaTraction versus Vanderwall, while they both have the hex shape, they're not the same product. At least I don't think they're the same product. I could be wrong on that, but when I looked online, they both look like two totally separate different companies. All right, so I already gave you my impressions on the 1.0. So that's this guy. Okay, on my retro single fin here, this guy here, I can get it in frame here, this guy, I put the 2.0 stuff on. And this stuff is definitely grippier than the 1.0. Right out of the box, it feels a little grippier. When it hits water, it gets a little bit grippier. It says, I think on the instruction, that it takes a few minutes for water to get on this and then to make it work better. I think that's true. I just found that it's just grippy, but with a caveat. It's still not as grippy as wax. Now, I was very impressed with 1.0 because it's better than anything that I've ever used, at least DIY stuff. But I have a very specific use case that I usually go surfing, I leave my board, I travel with it, go to work, I leave it in the car. It's sometimes out in the sun and the wax melts. So I really want some option instead of wax. So my use case is very specific. I still prefer the traction of wax. However, the 2.0 definitely grippier than 1.0. So I like it. However, I've tried VersaTraction now too. So I'll get to that in 1 second. With this Vanderwall 2.0 and the 1.0, I did find that with certain types of neoprene, it wasn't as grippy as my bare hands. It's a lot grippier on my feet and my bare skin, or my bare hands I should say. I just found it was grippier. It depends on the type of neoprene, so your mileage may vary, but I found any type of neoprene that had a bit of fabric on it tended to be a little bit slipperier. And even some types of, I have some neoprene gloves that are just pure neoprene for the winter when it's really cold out. And I did find it wasn't quite as grippy as my bare hands. But it was still adequate. I never had any problems falling off. Just, you have to be a little bit aware of it because it's still not as grippy as wax, like I said before. This guy here is my longboard, fun board. I call it a longboard. It's just over 8 feet. I put the VersaTraction on this. Now VersaTraction, this stuff is marketed for surfboards, but it's also marketed for, I believe, decking on anti-slip for decks of boats. You could probably use it in your bathtub, on decks, on stairs, stuff like that. Any place that you want traction. So it's kind of multi-purpose, but they specifically cut it, or they have types of it anyway for surfboards, and you can buy it in templates. So for a fun board, a short board, long board, the set I bought just so happened that it was good for around an 8-foot long board. And I applied it. What I like about it is it just comes in sheets. You can kind of see seams on it here and there, minor. But I actually really like this stuff as well. I probably like this stuff a little bit more than the Vanderwall surf grip. It's just personal preference. I just found that because it was one solid sheet, I felt a little bit more comfortable on this. I didn't find that I slid around as much when I was paddling. I never, like I said, I never had problems falling off either one of them or sliding off. I've probably had both of these out in shoulder to head high waves. So anything bigger than that, I'm not as comfortable in anything bigger than that. So I don't know how good it would be when it gets really, really big. But even in the wind and the really choppy surf, I've never had any problems sliding off. So as surf grip, both of them, they get an A+ from me. With me just preferring the VersaTraction slightly more, only because of the ease of use, just how it feels under feet. But then again, I do think that the 2.0 Vanderwall is grippier. Your mileage may vary. You might have to test them out for yourself. This is just my impressions of it. But I do prefer probably the VersaTraction. And the best part is it's slightly cheaper too if you're in North America, because ordering from the EU to get the Vanderwall surf grip is a little expensive. So I haven't been sponsored by any of these companies to review it or to talk about it or recommend one or the other. I'm gonna keep surfing, well, I guess all 3 of them on my boards until they wear out. They'll probably last quite some time. So far, I really like it. It doesn't melt. That's an A+ for me. Now this guy here is my beater board. It's got all kinds of cracks in it. If I need to teach someone how to surf, this is the board that I use. Now, I have to say, this is neoprene. I bought a roll of this stuff just as a test years ago, and this stuff is probably the grippiest out of all of the surf grips. That's what's hilarious, because it doesn't look very good, but man, surfing on this has traction, I would say, that is equivalent to wax, or if not, very darn close. It is very, very grippy. It's textured. It's really comfortable to paddle on too. It feels good underneath your feet. It's just too bad it adds a little bit of weight to your board, and well, it doesn't look the best. And in fact, even this, I have it like duct taped onto the board just so that when water hits it, it doesn't peel it back, because all I got is this contact cemented on. But yeah, really comfy, especially if you're teaching someone how to surf. This stuff here, really great. If I could just get it a little thinner and cut back on the weight, I would potentially, or if you could get it in another color like clear or even white, which you might be able to, I would probably use this on a lot of my boards. But hey, anyways, that's just an aside. Now, before we sign off, my short board here. I thought I'd experiment, and I ordered some of this 3M traction tape. And this stuff is meant for stair treads, or it's meant for your bathtub. I found that this stuff worked almost as good as some of the surf traction that I purchased. And I got this stuff on Amazon, and it wasn't that expensive. I forget exactly what the cost of it was for a roll, but it's pretty inexpensive because it goes on the bottom of your bathtub. Pretty grippy. But like I said, I don't think any of these are as good as wax. So if you really are in heavy surf and you don't want to risk sliding off, especially stuff that's you know, overhead or double overhead, you might want to just stick with wax. Like I said, for me, I like the convenience of not having to worry about the wax melting and then making a mess and then having to clean it up and all that stuff. You know, first world problem, but hey, you know, it's one of those things that it saves me a lot of grief. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I plan on, hopefully, and I've mentioned this in a previous video, getting around to building another surfboard this winter. I have the material right in front of me, right here, and it's going to be a wooden surfboard. I won't make any promises that if I'll be able to actually do a series on it, because my woodworking skills are pretty good, but we'll see what happens. I probably won't get started on this for probably a month or so, but I'm really looking forward to it, and it should be a lot of fun. It'll test out my woodworking skills. Building a chambered wooden surfboard has its own inherent challenges versus building these foam surfboards. So thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next video.